This is the 2025 McLaren Artura Spider, and in this video I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a very fun drive, see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, not like anyone cares, also the pricing and how it compares to the competition. And huge thanks also to McLaren and the Automotive Video Association for providing me here with this opportunity to take the Artura for a spin. So as far as the Spider version of the Artura, that is the new thing here for the 2025 model year, and it of course just takes the roof off of the already very impressive Artura, and this is going to be my first go in this next generation of McLaren's performance here. I already had experience with the 570S and the 720S, and trying out this new twin turbo V6 I'm very excited for. Almost 700 horsepower in this thing, and a plug-in hybrid which has electric range to allow you to quietly maneuver if you'd like for a few miles there, or you can also even go up to speeds up to 81 miles per hour in that electric mode if you want, before that gas engine kicks on and gives you much more performance. But as far as the styling, I mean, this thing, especially in this gorgeous blue color, really stands out, really looks fantastic. McLaren's always made beautiful cars, but I mean, this one, they really did a good job on this one, in my opinion at least. I love how everything's so functional and how everything is so exposed. So I mean, right up front there, you can see the coolers right there beneath the headlights, and just how deep everything is set into. The scoops you have for every single component, nothing is shallow. Everything has depth to it and curvature to it. And I mean, just this super low nose, everything just looks so cool up front here. And even though that nose is nice and low, you do thankfully have a standard front suspension lift here in order to make sure you can clear those speed bumps and things like that. And then coming down to the sides here, you have these very cool heat extractors with a carbon fiber touch here on this one. Looks great, and some beautiful wheels. Even the side mirrors are a beautiful work of art. And I also love, you can't maybe appreciate it on camera, but the curvature, the concavity of this door as it leads into that side scoop is really impressive. And that side scoop is massive as well. And another fun touch, you can see those flying buttresses that are partially clear there, so that you still have good visibility, relatively speaking, while still having the functional aspects of that piece. And you have the variety of scoops there to cool off the engine and everything in the back. Of course, the protruding exhaust tips nice and high there. And you see more of that exposure there as you look at the rear bumper, where you can see the gearbox and all that kind of stuff hanging out there in the back, as well as some more coolers. And just, it's so amazing how you can kind of see through much of the back end there, and it's a really fun look. It's very functional, and again, just makes sure that this is a very purpose-built vehicle. There's no superfluous stuff. It's all there for a reason, and if there is no reason, then it's not there. There is no valances or anything, and I think it's actually a really cool approach. And so overall, from every angle, this thing looks fantastic, and I think it looks fantastic both with the top up and with the top down. You can see the top takes only 11 seconds to drop, by the way, and give you this nice open air experience. The interior of the Artura Spider is, of course, very purposeful as well, and the first thing, sitting down in these seats, you have these really great deep bucket seats that really hold you in place nicely. They're pretty thin, but I mean, the seat back is firm, but not uncomfortably so, at least in my limited experience here so far. They're heated, and just a really nice seat here, especially with the Alcantara. It's a really nice feel. The steering wheel is also fantastic. McLaren always has amazing steering wheels, not a single button on it. I love them for that, and these big chunky metal paddle shifters feel great to use as well, and just a fantastic wheel. And I also love a really cool thing that I've never seen in another car before, and that is that you have these little toggle switches, these little rockers that you can reach while you're still holding the steering wheel to change not only your drive modes as far as the powertrain, but also the drive modes as far as the traction control system. And it's just, I mean, that's a brilliant idea to put them right there, and this whole cluster moves with the steering wheel and the steering column whenever you're adjusting it, and so it's always at the perfect position. It's never blocking your view with the steering wheel or anything, and just a really cool way that they designed that, and I think really creative. And then that little gauge cluster is really nice and high resolution, though, gives you all the information you need. Will change depending on the various drive modes that you're in, of course, and is a really nice look there as well. Coming over to the middle, you have an 8-inch touchscreen here, and it's certainly on the small side compared to average vehicles these days, but for something like this, I wouldn't want a screen any bigger. And it still actually does do Apple CarPlay. It does not do Android Auto, unfortunately, but it does have Apple CarPlay. It's wired, CarPlay, but still, I'm just happy you have that smartphone integration to kind of future-proof this. But it does have navigation built in and all the basics there, satellite radio, things like that. And I really like the design of it, again, that you have this little scroller wheel here that also works as a home button and a volume knob at the same time. A really cool little idea there. And then as far as, you know, storage and practicality, obviously not going to be great for a supercar, but you do have some fairly deep pockets here in the doors. And then in the middle here you have a Qi wireless phone charger that actually really holds your phone in snugly and is a good design, but that does sacrifice one cup holder when you opt for that charger. Otherwise, you just have this other little cup holder that is pretty narrow. You're not gonna be able to fit a large mug or drink in there, but you know, for a smaller little travel mug or something, should work okay. And then you have this center armrest, which is of course very narrow, but actually does have some nice padding to it. You open that up and you'll see, again, a narrow area that's, you know, good for your cell phone, maybe some sunglasses, and that's about it, as well as some you know, USB and USB-C jacks in there. And so, I mean, you know, enough for a supercar. You also do have the frunk, of course, and that's going to be your main storage area, since there is no rear storage in this. There's no trunk, because that's all taken up by the important stuff, the engine and all the powertrain bits. But yeah, overall, just a really beautiful interior. You have these Bowers & Wilkins speakers, and you have some ambient lighting around the doors, and it's all just really impressive. You even have, for this roof, you can have the option for it to be electrochromic, and this one does have that option, so you can have it, you know, fully transparent or have it opaque if you would like a little less sun in here. Also, that rear window does go up and down, so if you want to have the roof up but still open up that back to hear a little bit more of the exhaust, you can have that, which is a fantastic option as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and turn it on here and see how it does. So I'll show you the key here. It's a pretty cool, very slender little key in typical McLaren fashion, but really cool key in my opinion. But yeah, let's start up and see how it roars. So whenever you turn it on, it defaults to electric mode if you have it charged. We have 10 miles of range here, so it has defaulted to the electric mode. Then we can just go and put it up into comfort mode. We'll kick on the engine there, as will sport or track, of course. And track will actually charge the battery as well. If you want to charge the battery but you don't have a plug nearby, that's the good way to do that. All right, so I'm just going to start right off with an acceleration, rolling into it from first gear. Here we go. There it is. Man, this thing, it accelerates. Wow, very impressively, especially as you get to those higher RPMs. It accelerated so hard that my camera mount moved. So anyway, this thing has a 3-liter twin turbocharged V6 engine. That's 691 horsepower, 531 pound-feet of torque, and 0 to 60 officially by McLaren is claimed in 3 seconds, but current driver got a 2.6 seconds 0 to 60. It only takes 5.5 seconds to get to 100 miles per hour if you keep your foot into it, and it'll do a quarter-mile time of 10.3 seconds, all the way up to a 205 mile per hour top speed. And so, first things that I'm noticing about it, definitely a different sound than the twin turbo V8, and it's still a really cool sound. Once we get to some lower speeds, we'll show it off some more, but you do have a sport exhaust option on these, and that will allow you to have you know, a little bit more sound, but all the exhausts on these have a little bit more sound in general here. But wow, yeah, there's no like dead spots here, at least above 4,000 RPMs. It's just like all boost. If you don't have the turbos doing it, then you have, of course, the electric motors doing it. And that electric motor is a 94 horsepower motor that's attached to this 8-speed dual clutch transmission you have here in this. It's all in the transaxle in the back there. And so that gives you some nice torque fill, gives you that electric range, and, you know, just does all kinds of impressive stuff there. And speaking of the electric range, it's 11 miles of range is what you get officially, although it seems like some people have gotten more than that out of these. And so, you know, you have it all going to the rear wheels, by the way. There is no front wheel drive like you see with, you know, some of the other competitors out there. And two other things to mention as far as acceleration and power delivery is that you have an electronic limit slip differential here, putting all that power to the ground efficiently. And you also have what they call a spinning wheel pull away mode, which is a very fancy way of saying a burnout mode, essentially, to really take off, you know, with a smoke show if that's something that you want to do. And I mean, again, with this much horsepower and torque and something that's as light as this is, it can do that very easily if you want. And it's nice you have that drive mode there to make it even easier. And Now on some noisy roads, but at least a little quieter than the highway here. Some other things here to notice about this vehicle beyond the acceleration is just the way that it feels to drive. I've always loved McLarens because you have like such great visibility. You can see right over the fenders. You don't even see the fenders here. Aside from lifting your head up a little bit, you can see the edges to help place your wheel to hit an apex or something like that. But I mean, just excellent visibility. It's like you're floating around in a bubble or something. It's really just so good. Really easy to see out of the sides, you know, if the mirror's off, way off onto the doors there. View out of the back is great. You also have 360 cameras here, so you're able to see yourself really well in parking areas and make sure you don't, you know, have any mishaps or anything like that. And, you know, just a very accessible vehicle to drive. The dual clutch transmission also, in my low speed around town driving I've been doing here a little bit, is also very good. And, you know, there was just one time where I felt a little bit of an engagement point, but so far it's really smooth overall. And even at these lower RPMs though, at, you know, even lower speeds, I mean, the amount that it really just instantly takes off it just feels so good. And by the way, the manual shifting, I've been in manual mode this entire time because that's the way to drive a car like this, you know. But it's of course immediate, instant. And I actually like this sound. It kind of reminds me of like an Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, something like that. And you know, I could use, I'd say maybe a little more crackling and popping potentially. But other than that, I mean, it sounds great even just in sport mode here. I'm not going to go into track mode just because the roads are a tiny bit damp and slick from some rain earlier, and it's not super warm either. So I don't want to push my luck here, but I also love though, like, you know, that was third gear going from like 45 you know, up to 50 some miles per hour. You know, it's able to like give you those little bursts of fun, and it, you know, it still is fast and all that, but it's you're able to enjoy the power, you know, at lower speeds. And I mean, honestly, like the 720S was so quick. I mean, that's, you know, a little bit faster than this, not wildly different, but, you know, with that, it felt like it was almost impossible to go slow in that car. This, you know, I feel like I can still have fun at some lower speeds, and still, you know, just feel like I can have fun in traffic a little bit, you know, without being a menace to society. And so, yeah, it's just a fun little thingy whenever you're stuck behind traffic, unfortunately, like we are right now. But let's go for another acceleration, because why not? Here we go. Yeah, woo! That is fun. That is really fun. I do have to say, I think this definitely feels a little less wild than the 720S. Either that or I've gotten used to this kind of power from a McLaren. I don't know, but it's still very impressive. Just addictive. Every single time I want to keep just hitting the gas again and again and again and just feeling that surge of power. But as far as the handling in the Artura Spider here, you know, unfortunately I don't have a lot of great roads here. I don't have a lot of time to drive this vehicle, so I'm not able to sample the handling as much as I would like. But what I can say about the handling here is that you have wonderful steering. It's this electro-hydraulic steering unit that, I mean, is so direct and immediate, so full of feeling, and it's just perfect steering, honestly. It really is absolute perfection. One of the best steering feels I've ever experienced. I've driven and reviewed, you know, over like 700 cars at this point. This is definitely up there as one of the best for sure. Other things, you know, I'm really impressed with the ride quality, even in sport mode here for everything. You know, these roads are, you know, a little rough and, you know, have some bumps and undulations in them, and it's still a really smooth ride for a supercar. It's not beating me up. I could do this all day, honestly, and all day happily. And so it's impressive though, because this is a different suspension than what you get on a lot of other McLarens. Because like in the past, you would have no anti-roll bars, and there was this whole connected suspension system. It's really impressive. I tried it on track in the 570S, and you know, it's really impressive in that. But you know, in this, they're just a traditional setup of adaptive dampers. We have regular coil springs and regular anti-roll bars, and so you know, it's just a traditional kind of old school setup, but it works really well. The adaptive dampers, of course, will give you the adjustability of having it a little stiffer, a little softer, depending on what you want with the drive modes there. And you know, it's a great system that works, and so I don't think there's a need to overcomplicate it, because this just feels really good. And now whenever you need to slow down all that power, you have nice big brakes, of course. They're, I believe, 15.6-inch rotors in the front. I think they're 14.5 in the rear there. And this is a vehicle that's not heavy either. Even with the plug-in hybrid component, we're still only dealing with under 3,600 pounds for this thing. And as far as anyone who's curious about the Spider and the penalty of, you know, going for the convertible here, it's about 136 extra pounds. So it's, you know, substantial, but, you know, it's still a very light car. And, you know, again, if you're going for the Spider, you probably aren't going to be tracking aggressively. You don't care about having every pound saved. And so I think that, you know, it's a totally worthy trade-off to have the extra sounds of this exhaust. But I do have to say, you know, now that we're having less noisy surroundings, it does sound good, but I almost wish it went a little crazier with even the volume in addition to, again, having some more theatrics to it. I mean, it's good and it's fun. It's just the sound itself is not very dramatic, you know, and not quite as theatrical as you get from some of the other competitors. So that's one little critique, but, you know, I'm having so much fun driving this anyway that, you know, I don't really care. It still is a good sounding exhaust, and especially in those higher RPMs, you know, again, it's just a really great soundtrack to go along with the really impressive G-forces you have whenever this thing accelerates.
The last couple of things to mention, though, for those that are curious, are the fuel economy and the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as fuel economy goes, these are rated at 18 mpg combined whenever you're just running the gas engine, which honestly is pretty decent for something with almost 700 horsepower. And of course, if you do want to save a little bit of gas, you can exercise that 11-mile battery range as often as you feel like plugging it in. Lastly, pricing starts at $281,000, which is a nearly $25,000 premium over the coupe version, but the buyers of these obviously don't care about pricing, so it doesn't really matter. And of course, with options, these can quickly jump up in price anyway. Whenever you compare it to its main competitor, the Ferrari 296 GTS, the Artura Spider looks like a bargain anyway, with the Ferrari starting over $80,000 more. In its defense, though, the 296 does have over 100 more horsepower, and in my opinion, it sounds better as well. I was fortunate enough to actually do some laps in the 296 GTB around Ferrari's Fiorano racetrack earlier this year, and while I wasn't able to spend a lot of time in it, it definitely pulls a lot harder than this car and feels more capable, but it did also feel a little heavier than the Artura did in my opinion. The Artura just felt a little simpler and more pure with the driving experience. Both approaches are very enjoyable in their own unique ways, of course, but for those willing to have something a little less exotic, the biggest problem for the Artura, in my opinion, will be the new Corvette ZR1, with its insane 1,064 horsepower twin-turbo flat-plane crank V8. We don't have pricing for the ZR1 as of the time of me filming this, but it's expected to come in well under the $281,000 that the Artura starts at. Nevertheless, if the Corvette doesn't appeal to you and you either can't spring for the Ferrari or you don't want to for whatever reason, the Artura is still a fantastic choice that's sure to thrill and heighten the experience even more with that roof down. So that's all of my thoughts on the Artura Spider. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks once again to McLaren for bringing this vehicle to the Automotive Video Association's fall event for us to review. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.